We are live. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on the Show Must Go On line. Today's guest is Mike Anthony. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. How are you?
I am great. Thank you. And I appreciate you coming on Hamilton Day. What an exciting day.
Big day. Big day.
So have you already seen it?
I have. I watched the first half. And then I'm going to wait until a little later and watch the second half. Too much emotion all at once. You know, I had to take a break, and I want to savor it. Exactly. Well done.
Yes, thank you. There will be much of that, whether we like it or not. It's like, I don't know about with you, but the Hamilton lines, they're like nonstop.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I do it by mistake. I don't realize I do it. And then the person repeats the line back to me. They're like, oh, and I'm like, yeah, that's what do you mean? Yeah. I just don't even hear myself doing it anymore.
Yes. Well, that's probably good because you've been with the Hamilton journey for so long. So why don't we start from the beginning? A very good place to start. And tell us your origin story.
Well, so the way originally I was had gone to school to be a teacher. I was going to be a high school science teacher when I first went to college. Although I had fallen in love with theater in high school, but never in a million years thought it was something that I could actually do as like a career. And then, but I kept doing it in college, sort of in the background. I was getting cast in the student one-act plays and things. And then I was doing the larger productions. And at one point, just when I was about a year away from graduating with a degrees in education and science, my acting, the head of the theater department said, you really should think about doing this. And so I called my mom and I was like, Ma, my professor thinks I should do this. So I'm going to do that. See you later. And then, and my parents were amazing about it. But that meant I had to spend another year in college to get my degree in theater. And then, just to make sure that I was adequately in debt when I actually started my theater career, which, as you know, are highly lucrative typically. Then I went to grad school to get an MFA in acting. And then and that was an amazing experience. And then I moved back to New York City. And I was looking for a day job, a job that I figured I'd have for maybe like 6 months or something until I made it on Broadway. And I got this job as a bartender for a company that services the Nederlander theaters on Broadway. And that little job ended up changing my life. And now here I am at this point, I guess 14 years later, still I'm now a 42-year-old concessionaire. That's what I do.
That's amazing. And I think you're also like selling yourself short a little bit. I think the idea of like, oh yeah, we're going to be a bartender. I worked at a bagel place for a year while getting adjusted into the journalism world. If y'all have been to these videos before, you know that my dog Slim likes to say hi, and he's right here. So you will probably see him throughout the broadcast. I love dogs so much. And he's just here, and he loves Hamilton as well. He watched with me last night. So that's to start with. So I love that you took the like, well, I'm going to be a bartender and do it in the theater. And then that blossomed into so much, and life at Hamilton that's just been like from afar so much fun to read. Like every time I see a new post, I know my friends and I are always like, oh, did you see that? And have you read this?
Yeah. It's been, such an incredible thing to experience. I was actually on, I had been bartending for maybe 9 years or something. And I was like, and I hadn't been auditioning anymore. I was really like, that was my life. That was my job. And I was like, maybe it's time to because that had become sort of a safe place, that job, and I wasn't taking any sort of chances at all in my life. And I was like, maybe it's time to step away from this and jump off a cliff and build some wings on the way down, as they say. And then Hamilton, came to the Rogers, which I happened to be the bar manager of by that point. And I was like, well, I'm hearing some things about this show. Sounds like it might run for a little while. Let me just see what it's going to be about. And then I just wrote the story today online about the first night that I saw it. You know, I was setting up some lights around the bar, and Tim, who's the house manager at the Rogers, came and said, "Hey, Lynn invited you guys to see the last run through tonight. If you want to come see it." And I was like, "Sure, might as well." So like Hamilton, I knew nothing. Like Hamilton the man, I knew nothing about. I was like, I think he was a president, maybe,
right.
And pretty sure he shot somebody in the face while duck hunting. Is that what he did? Did he do that? Which actually, I think that was actually Dick Cheney. But I knew like historically nothing at all. And all I knew of Lynn, I also happened to work at the Rogers for In the Heights. So I knew Lynn's work intimately. You know, I was in love with In the Heights. The first night that I saw that, I was like, oh my God, if I'm just a bartender for the rest of my life at this show, I'll be happy. You know, it's so amazing. Yeah. So anyway, we go into the theater and it's empty. You know, we're in the 1,300 seat Richard Rogers Theater, and it's just like 7 of us, my friend Marie and I, and then some of the swings who weren't in that night, sitting in the mezzanine in the big, huge, empty Richard Rogers. And that show started, and Marie was like crying immediately. And then by the end of that show, we were both, Marie was rocking back and forth. Like she had totally lost it. Just a mess. And it was like nothing I'd ever seen before, you know, because it had been so hyped already. And I thought maybe it had been overhyped, but you know, just a few minutes in, I was like, well, nope, it's not overhyped. And then by the end of it, I was like, just completely, you know, totally, utterly blown away with Lynn's genius. I mean, there's no other word for it. He's a legit genius.
It's true. That's true. I cannot imagine having the Rogers to yourself with some friends watching Hamilton.
Yeah.
Like that's, I mean, what we're getting now with Disney Plus already feels like a dream that we're so close, but it's, you know, it's years later and like there's been so much hype and I've seen it a few times. Like for that to be your introduction to this phenomenon, I'm like trying to compose myself because I would have, it's just so amazing. It
was. I mean, you know, we take things for granted so easily in our lives. It's just the human nature, you know, it's just sort of the way we typically operate. And if I could go back in time, I'd slap myself a few times and be like, remember every single moment of this. Remember every expression on Leslie's face. Just remember every single little thing here. Because you know, it truly was when I think about it now, just the few of us in that theater watching that show on the night before the rest of the world got to see it. It was really an extraordinary, life-changing thing. I mean, I knew right away that this was going to be an incredible ride. You know, I didn't know I was going to be meeting Barack Obama because of it and things like that. Yes. You know, that stuff was just insane. But yeah, seeing the show that very first night, there was no doubt that this was going to change theater and the world. I mean, you really felt that night like this was important and that it transcended Broadway. And that it was going to have like a larger impact on the culture and the world in general. Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I want to hear your Obama story. I've read it, but there's nothing like a story that you I'm using this. Oh, now we get to see. Oh, what?
Hey.
Oh, look at this. Yeah, this is brand new, y'all. I need to tell a quick little anecdote that I ordered this probably like a month and a half ago. And, you know, COVID and things are delayed. That's totally cool. And it came about 15 minutes ago. And I was like, oh, this will be an easy setup. Like, this is so great. This ring light came. And now I'm like changing up the entire setup, and Mike got to experience having someone who does something every day now attempt to change it up. And so thank you for
you were so cool under the pressure. That clock was counting down. We're getting so close to 5 o'clock, and you did not break a sweat. I was sweating for you. I'm a mess over here. You were like totally cool.
Yes, totally cool. And I think we have this chat option here. I'm gonna see what that looks like for everyone watching at home here. Oh, maybe not. This is also, oh yes, here we are. Hello everyone, I can see you. Like I said, this is like new territory now, checking it out, being broadcast from my phone rather than the computer. But I see everyone here saying hello. I see so many friends, so many Showtreons. Showtreons are the awesome people who support me through bwaySHO Patreon, and we have a Hamilton viewing party like in a few hours, and we had a midnight one, and that was
nice.
It's so funny watching something. I'm gonna get back to the Brock story. Don't you worry. But for everyone else who watched Hamilton at midnight or 3 o'clock or whatever time was there's Limbo was there for you, there was something fun about being slightly delirious that early in the morning and having something that we waited for and waited for and waited for. So what time did you actually watch that first part?
I was actually up last night at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, should I just wait? But I was tired. And then I was like, no, I want to be refreshed for this. So I didn't watch it until this afternoon. I was working on the book a little bit this morning. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it. And then I started watching it. And yeah, it was almost too much. You know, it's been so long, right? Since I've been there. I mean, speaking of taking things for granted, you know, I've worked there for 5 years. I've worked there from the very beginning, and it's become the background of my life. You know, hearing the songs is the back. I hear it all the time, you know, just sort of in my subconscious even. I'll be like driving in the car sometimes, and there's music on in the background. I'm not really paying attention, and all of a sudden I'll be like, man, I'm feeling so anxious right now. Why is that? And then I'll realize it's because Nonstop is on, which is the song right before intermission. That's when I got to start getting ready for intermission.
Oh, yeah.
So that's how deeply it's like in my subconscious. My body physically reacts when I'm not even paying attention to it. So it's just been so long, though, that we've been away from it. We've had this separation. And of course, I miss everybody so much. And it's been so long since I've seen that original cast all together like that.
Right.
So, yeah, watching it was just, and I was nervous also, honestly. I was nervous because I didn't know, catching live theater is its own medium, right? It's not meant necessarily for television or a TV screen. It's a different thing. And trying to capture the essence of that is incredibly difficult, and it really can't be 100% done, right? There are levels of how well it can be done, as I now know from watching that, but it can't be totally 100% done. So I was a little nervous about how, because I've been telling family and everybody I'm like, you got to see this. It's going to change your life. It's going to change. You got to see it. And now that it's coming out, I'm like, oh man, is it going to hold up to the expectations I've set for people?
Yeah.
And I really feel like it does. I mean, what did you think?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I've been very fortunate to have seen it 8 times across the world, it's a very different experience seeing different casts in London, Chicago, Broadway, and even Puerto Rico with Lynn, which was
cool.
Yeah, I saw it his birthday, the evening performance.
Awesome.
And like talk about like a magical energy in the room where it happens.
Yeah.
Like, there are certain moments in any theatrical performance, and especially with something as big as Hamilton, where I could imagine like the first preview, you know, the day after the Tonys, like the day before Lynn left and David and Pippa, you know, like there are those type of moments for me, because I never saw the original Broadway cast on Broadway. Seeing Lynn in Puerto Rico was like that moment for me.
Yeah.
And then and seeing One Last Chai, the Chicago company final, Miguel Cervantes is a magical human being. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, he's so great.
Yeah. And so all of that being said, watching it last night or this morning, it was like, oh, so that's what Daveed Diggs looks like when he does that move, or
Right.
that's Renee doing the rewind. Like it was so exciting to take the words that I've heard and the other performances I've seen and actually see like the two fused together.
Yes, right. I can imagine that. I'm sure. Yeah. Because it was, I mean, when it was happening on that very first night, I wondered when we were right after that first viewing of it, I was like, man, is this going to be the same without these people in the show? Because it was like, this is lightning in a bottle that we have here. You know what I mean? It's this combination of Lynn's genius, but also these supremely talented people. I could not imagine anyone else doing what Daveed did that night. I was like, how can any other human spit those words out? How can anyone else ever do it again? It's not going to happen. But thank goodness. I mean, the thing that provides the lift to this show is not only the amazingly talented people, which obviously that is a big part of it, but it's Lynn's genius. I mean, that is what raises this show up and makes the heights that it gets to, possible. And so it was great to see the night after, because it was Lynn, Pippa, and Leslie that we were losing all at once, right? Wow. And so that next day we were all kind of like, oh man, oh gosh, what's this going to be like? And it was, it was Javi who was doing it, and so it maintained. It was still just as wonderful, but yeah, there's never anything quite like seeing the people who grew up with the show, who birthed the show into existence together. They're always going to have a special sort of a thing going on together. Mm-hmm. So I'm so glad that that's now captured forever.
Right. I know it's so magical. Javi was my first ham, and that was a pretty great first ham. But like you're saying, there is something magical. There's something special about when those humans are together in a room, and specifically when that room is the Richard Rodgers and they're performing Hamilton together. There's just something magical, and we don't usually get that essence. Like even when Newsies was filmed, it was filmed like years later, and it wasn't all of the original cast. It was kind of a fusion of two different casts, and that's a show that like I absolutely love, and I watch that professional filmed version a lot, but it's not the original cast. And this is most of the original cast. I do like to put that little like asterisk, you know, but like you're saying, oof. Yeah. So I want to talk about what makes Hamilton even more special is that it's not just about the people that you see on the stage. It is that whole Ham fam and everyone behind the scenes and at the bar and all the stories. And so what's it like being a part of that family?
It's incredible. And that there are a lot of reasons for that. Lynn is a big part of that. Lynn is such an inclusive guy. I've worked so many shows over those 14 years or whatever it is. And I've never had this happen before. After the Tonys, the next day, whenever the next performance was, Lynn came into the lobby and he dropped 2 Tonys off of my bar. And he said, hey, I just want to leave these here for you in case you guys want to take pictures with them. And I was like, oh, I think I might be able to find 1 or 2 people who want to do that. And no one has ever done anything like that. You know what I mean? He literally just came, dropped the Tonys off on the bar, and so that we could the whole house staff could come and take all these photos with him, because he really wanted people to feel included and a part of it in whatever way that they were. So yeah, being a part of it, I play softball with the Hamilton softball team. Yeah. And the bowling, there's a bowling team that I played with for a while. And so it really does feel like you're a part of this, this family is really what it feels like, which is, so great. And something I did not expect when I took this job selling candy. I did not think that sort of thing would happen.
Do you have something favorite do you have a favorite item that if someone asks, you're like, ooh, no one ever asks about this item?
Like, you mean like that we sell at the bar?
Yeah.
Oh, no, pretty much everyone buys anything that they see there. It doesn't matter. If we run out of things, they will just buy whatever's left, because they just got to have something in their hands and then get inside the theater. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I don't know that the most popular, we have a drink called the Founder's Fizz. And Lynn, the first night that he was able to watch the show after, the first night after he left the show, he came to just sit and watch it. And he came and he got a Founder's Fizz and he tweeted about it. And that was the only thing we sold for like a month. It was just the Founder's Fizz. That's the power of Lynn's, tweet.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Lynn Effect, I like to say.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. That was he retweeted a photo I took of him on his birthday in Puerto Rico, and all of a sudden it was like boom, 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 like my phone was blowing up, and I'm like,
yeah,
this is what it feels like.
Yeah, cool, that's cool.
So do you make a drink? Like I thought for the occasion I would make a fancy little beverage myself here.
Oh my gosh, look at you.
I know.
Well, here's a little secret between just me and your viewers. I am a terrible bartender. I don't know. I tell this story all the time, but when I first got the job, I mean, I knew nothing about bartending at all. And the very first night, someone ordered I was working at Tarzan. I was more nervous than I'd ever been on stage when intermission happened and all these people came out. My heart was pounding. I mean, pounding. And this guy ordered a Cape Cod. And I was like, sorry, we don't have the stuff for that. And he was like, oh, well, do you have vodka? And I was like, oh yeah, I have that I have. And he said, okay, how about cranberry juice? And I was like, oh yeah, that's right here on the gun. I have that. And he said, okay, I'll have a vodka and cranberry juice. I was like, no problem. And I made the drink and I handed it to him and he left. And my manager was like, that is a Cape Cod. And I was like, oh God. So I went and bought a Bartending for Dummies book that night. But yeah, I'm the least talented bartender you ever met. I'm just going to be frank with you and tell you that.
That makes me feel a little bit better, because I love making like a fun little drink, or I love ordering something and I have no idea. Like my friends will always tease me, even when we're at Hamilton and they're like, what do you want? And I like look at the thing, and I've had to have these like certain drinks, like, oh, well, if it has gin, I probably like it. Or if it's like a Moscow Mule or a bourbon mule, sign me up. And so it's nice having those like go-to drinks, so I can feel like, oh yeah, I'm cool. Like, oh yeah, I'll have a bourbon mule, please.
Yeah.
gotta change it up. So I see what's so great is there are a lot of people are just commenting and like having a conversation within the chat group. And I think that's pretty cool that like we're having this live chat and they're just like going.
Oh, that's awesome.
Back and forth. That's great. I love it. Lisa, I see you. Alyssa. Great. Sarah. Hello. So let's get back to that President Barack Obama story, please. And thank you.
Yeah. Well, so just to lead into that, Barack Obama to me was like this miracle that, and not to get political on your show, but I just loved Barack Obama. I mean, I was like, for me, the 8 years of the George Bush presidency were very difficult. I was in New York on 9/11. I was working in Tower 2 on and off temping around the time. So that whole, I was like a shattered human being after 9/11. I was just really a mess. And when Barack Obama came on the scene, I can't tell you what it felt like the night that he actually won that election. I did not think that was going to happen. And when he walked out to give that speech in Chicago, I was sitting with my girlfriend and I was at my sister's house and everyone is just weeping, like when the results came in that he had won, people weren't like freaking out. There was silence in the room because we were all like, we couldn't believe it. Gets me choked up now to think about what that felt like. And then he gave that speech like superhumans. It was unbelievable. Anyway, so then all the Hamilton craziness is going on, which was, unreal. And then Tim came over to me again one day while I was working at the bar. And he was like, hey, you have to come in early tomorrow because the president is coming. And I was like, the president of what? And he said,
like Chris Jackson?
Yeah. And he was like, us, America, the President Obama. And I was like, what? Oh my God, what? I mean, I just couldn't believe that was happening. And I had to come in early because the Secret Service was, I'm not going to give away any secrets here, Secret Service, but they have to come in and do all their checks and everything. So I had to unlock the safe and leave the office open and everything. So of course I came in as early as I could the next day because I wanted to just catch a glimpse of him if possible even.
Yeah.
So anyway, at one point there was a bunch of activity happening in the lobby, and it was clear that like something was going on. All of the agents are like talking into the wrist, and like things are happening. And I had to go to the back alley to get ice, and that's where they had set up the sort of a makeshift safe room for him in that back alley. And I get to the door and an agent stops me and I tell him, I just need to go get this ice. And then he talks to somebody and then he says, okay. And I go in and not expecting that I'm going to see the president, but like 7 feet from me or something, he's standing there. And I'm like a babbling idiot at that point. I'm like, oh God, here. Oh my God. I'm like shouting a little bit. I'm sure the Secret Service are like getting nervous. There's this babbling, semi-shouting man is going, oh my God, Mr. Obama, I just, you don't have any, I can't even tell you. It's because, no, I just, like, I got to get this ice, but this is like the most amazing thing that's ever happened in my life. And he just said, nice to meet you with that smile. It was like, he was just exactly as wonderful as I thought he was going to be. And then he came back maybe, can't really remember the timeline of this, but I think it was a couple months later because the DNC had a special performance, so that's when everybody was there, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, everybody from all of the big shot, as well as like Chris Rock and Ed Norton, all of the big Democratic donors were also there. So that was a fascinating night. But anyway, after that performance, he gave a speech up on stage and I was maybe 30, 40, 50 feet from him or something. And to hear him say, yes, we can in person that close. It was the greatest moment of my life watching him give that speech. That's on YouTube somewhere, I'm sure, the speech he gave at Hamilton. Yeah.
I'm getting chills for you. It's one of those things that when someone else gets to live their dream and they're so passionate about this experience, it makes you happy. And that's what you just did for me.
Oh, I'm glad.
Yeah. I love Obama. I actually, so I went to the University of Maryland, go Terps. and the day that Obama had his second inauguration, I was like, well, I'm a photographer. I'm a journalist. I'm of course going to head over there and see it in person. So I brought my camera. I got there at like 3 a.m. as one does. And you could either choose to see him kind of like live be sworn in, or you could be on the route that the motorcade goes by. You couldn't like really get to do both just because of all the security and they blocked off things. So I was like, well, you know what? Like it would be super cool to see him and Michelle just drive right by. So I stayed there for like 6 hours probably. And I got to know like the police officers and the sheriffs and, now with everything going on, I'm like, this is a very interesting thing to look back on and all of that. And Black Lives Matter. And I'm just going to like put that right in there. And we need to end police brutality. Just if I'm going to tell a story that involves police, I feel like I should throw that in there.
Good for you.
Thank you. Yes. As is the right thing to do. And so I got to, everyone's like chatting because when you're anywhere for like 6 hours, you can't not talk to them. And so as the motorcade's coming through, one of the police officers or the sheriff steps right in front of me. And I was like, no. And I go, Ted, a little to the left. And he moved.
Oh.
And I have this beautiful photo of Obama waving through the motorcade and smiling.
Oh, how cool.
It was so cool. And like, I shared it with everyone in our like 10, foot radius. Someone's like, she got a photo. And so that was a super cool moment. And it's
so awesome.
So I thought you would be someone who would appreciate an Obama story.
Oh, completely. That's so cool. Yeah. That's so great. Gosh, do I miss him? Oh man.
I know. So much. So speaking of stories, I would love to hear more about this book you're working on.
Yeah. So, I was having all of these cool interactions, meeting these people. And on the train ride home at night, I would just like sort of tap it out on my notes app and post it. What happened was the night that Mike Pence came, just for a little more politics for you.
Can we get back to politics, please?
Yeah. That night was the most electric night of theater that I've ever experienced. And I won't talk too much about it because it's in the book. And I see that the woman who's editing the book for me, Stephanie Good, who's this amazing author, is watching. And, she wants me to save it for the book. But I'll just say that it was the most electric night of theater by far that I've ever experienced. Because, the whole audience knew that Mike was there because of the way he when he walked in, the lights were up and people saw him. So the whole audience knew what was going on at that point. And so the show took on this huge meta, the show is always alive, and electric. But this night it took on this huge meta thing. And every line had so much weight to it. And the line, "Immigrants, we get the job done." This gives me chills right now thinking about this moment. Yeah. The audience went insane to tell Mike Pence, this is how we feel about Donald Trump's immigration policies. You remember all of the terrible things that Trump was saying back at that point about immigrants and people from Mexico, for instance, and all that.
I was a reporter in Texas during that time, so I very much understand. So continue. Yeah.
You were living that then. Yeah. Yes. So when that line, "Immigrants, we get the job done," like the audience went so insane that David, like they're up there and like you could see they can't even like hear the pit. It's so loud, Wow. And I've never been more proud of New York City than I was in that moment. But and then I had a little personal interaction with Mike Pence before that happened.
Wow.
I happened to be wearing the, Lynn's speech that he gave, the "Love is Love is Love" speech, which he wrote right after the Pulse nightclub incident. And there were pins made for us. And I happened to have it on my vest when Pence was there. And again, we won't get too into this, but Mike Pence is a very, supposedly religious guy, and he has very strong views about being gay, being not right in the eyes of God or whatever. And anyway, as he's walking up to me and going to shake my hand, I pointed to the pin, which he looked at, and I don't know if he knew what it meant or what, but he just kind of smiled and then walked away. Anyway, but I wrote about that brief interaction on Facebook, and that post went viral. It ended up getting shared on Pantsuit Nation, and so it was something like 150,000 people or something were commenting on it. And then I started this Facebook Live video when the speech the letter was read at the end of the show, and that had like 100,000 people watching it. And I was like, that number can't be right. I don't know 1,000 people. It can't be. But that's what happened. They had gone viral a little bit. So that's how this sort of Facebook family came together. And I started writing these posts for this virtual family that had sort of gathered. At that time, we were all reeling. The people that were following me were reeling from the election, and this sort of was like this little safe place where we came together and kept each other's hopes up, And so then one day I came out of the Rogers on 46th Street, and this car screeched to a halt in the middle of 46th Street. And the passenger door flew open, and this woman got out, and her husband was driving, and cars are honking behind him. And she comes out and she's like, "Mike, I know you from Facebook," and she hugged me and we talked. It was like a 10-second thing or something, because it's 46th Street in Manhattan. Yeah. People are freaking out. And I was like, "Oh, hi, my gosh." And then she got back in the car and left. And then a year or two after that, she got in touch with me on Facebook, and she said, "Listen, as it turns out, she's a New York Times bestselling author. She's this fantastic author. And she said,
Wow.
I think you should collect these into a book. And then, so it's really all thanks to her, Stephanie Good. Without her, there's no way this would have happened. Out of nothing but the kindness of her heart, because I'm, a poor bartender, she's editing the thing just out of the kindness of her. Yeah, the amount of work and effort she's put into this.
Wow.
And then she and my mom sort of have become friends on Facebook as well. So it's really my mom and Stephanie. It's entirely due to them that it's happening. I almost have nothing to do with it. It's really, I'm just riding this current of amazing kindness. So that's what's happening. And yeah, and we're, I'm getting closer now. Right now I'm working on getting Lynn's blessing for it. A little worrisome. And the idea of showing my writing to a linguistic genius is very troubling to me. But I didn't want to publish it with at least giving the production a heads up about it. So that's where we're at now. And then I'm hoping in the next, maybe the next month to have it published.
Oh, Mazel Tov. That's
hoping. Yeah.
That's so exciting. And this is why having these type of interviews and conversations are so exciting, because I never would have known about the kindness of her to be helping with this and the journey. And I'm so a fan of like the pay it forward and the spread good energy and lift up your friends. And if someone else is working on something, like, let's see how we can help promote them. And I think that's just so cool that you're having this experience right now. So great.
I'm so grateful, that I write a little bit in the book about how, you just never know how things are going to turn out. And as difficult as this time is right now, even for me, obviously I'm not speaking for the country. For me, again, having this current president as the president is a hard thing to even fathom. And it's a tough time, but I honestly do believe, and again, and I'm saying this, I always want to acknowledge, I'm saying this as a straight white man, that I feel like we're going to come out of this better. I feel like Donald Trump is triggering, like there's the legend of Hydra, where you chop off the head and then like these 6 more bad evil heads pop off. I really think that the universe in reality is the opposite of that. I think that something negative happens and a million good things come to answer it. I really do feel like that's the way, if we could see it from far enough away. Of course, within that, there are all of these very, very painful, difficult individual stories. Yeah. So, and that's why I say I'm a white guy. So I don't know. I've not experienced those very difficult day-to-day things. So it's easy for me to say. I'm aware that it's easy for me to say things are going to be okay. But I do believe just energetically that if you look at sort of the general arrow, the direction that humanity has been going from the time that we were like feeding people to lions, to slavery, to today, I feel like you have to see that it's getting slowly better. Like the general direction that we're going in is the right direction. And I think that Donald Trump is going to end up triggering a wave of love in response. I really do believe that.
Such a positive take on the situation. And I think we could use that right now. And I appreciate that, because it's tough on so many levels, starting, COVID, I guess, triggered it. And then with so many senseless deaths, and then the Black Lives Matter movement. And this is like, history is happening. And are you going to be on the right side of history? Now is the time to stand.
Absolutely. Yep.
And there are so many Hamilton, like I know we were saying before with the Hamilton quotes, but there are truly so many Hamilton lines that are happening right now in real life, that they're like, you can't watch this movie now. You can't watch Hamilton on Disney Plus and not support Black Lives Matter, because you're missing the point. You're being hypocritical. You're just not getting it. Like, you can't say that Daveed Diggs and Renee Lee Scolsbury and all of them, right? Chris Jackson, Leslie Odom Jr., The Bullet, Ariana DeBose, right? Like, you can't support what they do on that stage and then be like, oh, I'm going to stay silent, because we can't be silent anymore. And like you're saying, like, this has triggered that effect that it's almost that perfect storm of everyone's home, well, except if you're an essential worker, and thank you if you're an essential worker doing what you're doing. And artists are kind of an essential worker in a different way, and we're noticing that
Totally.
right now, right? Like, what are we
yeah,
turning to?
totally.
Turning to music, books, Netflix, theater. We're turning towards that. I always love to put that out there, because people have been saying, like, well, why should artists and why should theater workers get the COVID pandemic unemployment extended? And I'm like, let me tell you. And I feel like being in this industry as a theater reporter, being friends with a lot of actors, and, you know, with you being a bar manager at Hamilton, it's that same idea of how important theater is and getting that extended. And it's just like all of these feelings are coming together, and you really notice people's true sides right now.
I think you're so right. Yeah. And the way that you mentioned that it's like this perfect storm. The fact that Hamilton came around when it did, right during that election, is one of the things that makes me feel like there is some sort of an orchestration to the universe.
Right.
Because you're
Alex
right.
Lacamoire is somewhere.
Yeah. I just feel like it's insane that is the show that we needed. You know, the way that, again, to go back to that night that Mike Pence was there, the way that show spoke to the moment right then was no other show would have done. You know what I mean? No other show would have been the right show in that moment. And it was so the right show. It was just incredible. And yeah, about artists being essential. I mean, hands down, no doubt about it. Artists are essential. I mean, artists are the canaries in the coal mine. They always have been. They're the ones that sound the alarm long before a lot of times it reaches the public's mainstream awareness. And art is the thing that makes human beings better. I truly believe that. You can't make a person better. I don't think. I think people get better, and they get better by being exposed to better things. And a lot of times, we don't want to be taught a lot of times, we kind of want to, defenses can go up and all sorts of ego things can get involved. Art is the thing that hits us in places we don't consciously understand a lot of times right away, but sure enough, it makes us better. It slowly makes us better. That's what art does. It's the way that it's the way that we connect. I was just writing today about this. There was a study done by the University College London, and I love this. I just love this. They monitored audience members who were watching a production of Dreamgirls in the West End.
Yeah.
And monitoring their heart rates and their electrodermal activity on their skin. And they found something that totally baffled them, and they do not understand it. But the hearts of the people sitting in the theater together started to beat in time. People's electrical activity and their hearts physically, literally started to beat together. They became a coherent thing. And that is the power of live theater. I mean, I've always known, obviously, that there's something special about sitting in a live theater performance, but now science tells us it's special too. And I don't know what it means that our hearts start beating together, but I do know that that's gotta mean something. It's gotta be important. And I just love it. And I'm going to think about that the next time when we're back at Hamilton and I go into that theater. I mean, I'm going to think about my heart beating with everybody else's heart. And, that's gotta make things better.
Wow. That I hadn't heard that before. And now that you're saying it, it's like, I feel it, right? Like my friend Lisa, who's here watching with us, we watched the One Last Chai together. And it was like, there was this energy that like we could communicate without saying anything. And like, even just during like Dear Theodosia, she literally just like took a tissue without looking, handed it over to me. We both like quietly sobbed together. And when I say quietly, I guess it probably wasn't. It was a very obnoxious cry, but everyone was. So I guess I'll, say whatever.
Totally
but
okay.
Yeah. And I feel like the people around me, like some of them were friends, some of them I met for the first time that day. And there was something in that energy in that audience. And that's exactly what I'm thinking about is that's the power of live theater. It's the power that you go in sometimes as strangers. Sometimes you go by yourself, you go with a friend, a family member, a loved one. And sometimes you bond with the people around you and they can become your lifelong friends because there's something so special. Whether sometimes, there's that special guest or a not special guest and something goes wrong and people have to adjust. Have you had any of those experiences where you were either watching, you were listening at the bar, or someone, a guest, a celebrity maybe came up to the bar and wanted something and you didn't have it and you had to adjust in the moment and it kind of felt like live theater to you?
Oh, sure. I mean, yeah, my whole life feels like I'm riding by the seat of my pants and making it up as I go along. Yeah, that's just my sort of basic existence. So yes, I get that feeling.
Wow. Do you have any favorite? So of course, the Obama example, amazing. That's just do you have any other stories where there was either a celebrity that you really admired or that did something really great, or I don't know, any tea as we could call it?
Yeah. I mean, I've met that the first year at Hamilton, everyone was there that everyone on the planet knows. And it was so frequent that I literally now sometimes I'm like, did I actually talk to Harrison Ford? Or was I thinking about that? And that was just a thought I was having. I literally can't remember that anymore. But some of the ones that stand out, Barry Manilow was a big one for me. When I was I was a very strange little dude. And I had this fixation at 4 years old with Barry Manilow. And the song, I Can't Smile Without You. When I was a little kid, in my car seat, I loved that song. I must have some past life connection or something with Barry Manilow. And then my dad, who died about 9 years ago, before I met Barry, but he one day surprised me with this long trip. We were going to take a long drive somewhere. We just used to go for drives, which I love doing with him. And he didn't tell me where we were going. He was like, but this is going to be an extra long drive this time. So, make sure you go to the bathroom and grab some food and stuff. And I don't know, maybe 9 years old or something. And then halfway through the drive, he's like, hey, we're going to see Barry Manilow. And I was like, oh my God. So we went and it was out on a lawn somewhere, and Barry was so far away, I couldn't separate him from the piano, but it didn't matter. I was sitting in my dad's lap, listening to I Can't Smile Without You, it was just incredible. And so losing my dad was obviously this devastating thing. So meeting Barry Manilow, no, it's okay. What? I'm all good. I'm good now. That's where my life has gone since then. I don't know if you and I have talked about that at all, into after death studies and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So my life took this crazy, fascinating, awesome, lovely turn after that. But anyway, meeting Barry Manilow for all of those reasons was surprisingly emotional for me. It was really and it was meeting. It was 4 seconds. I was like, oh my God, shaking his hand. Hi, Barry Manilow. And then some baseball players that my dad and I were big fans of when I was a little kid. Those were big. Bruce Springsteen, or Bruce. I just call him Bruce now.
First name basis.
Yeah. Whenever it's a big star, a lot of times we'll bring them in early, just to avoid too much chaos in the lobby. So he was in there early and wanted a drink. So it was just he and I for a little while. And he's talking, and while he's talking, I'm going, that's Bruce Springsteen. I'm talking to Bruce Springsteen, and he's saying things to me right now. I wonder what he's saying. I remember specifically thinking at a moment, I wonder what he's saying, because I'm not listening, because I'm right now totally outside of my body watching me have this conversation with the boss,
Yes.
That was extraordinary. Bernie Sanders was really awesome. He stayed afterwards, so I got to hang out with him for a while up on stage, and he was really cool. Yeah, there have been so many people. It's been extraordinary. I'll tell one last little story. Stephanie, I promise this is the last one. But Matthew McConaughey. I actually served Matthew years ago when I worked at The Lion King. So this is probably, I don't know, 14 years ago or something like that. And he was this really awesome guy, and his whatever the person he was with was in the bathroom. So we were talking for maybe 5 minutes or so just at the bar while his friend was in the bathroom. And then he came to see Hamilton maybe 2 years ago. And I was like, Matthew, Mr. McConaughey, you're not going to remember this, but we met a while ago, and I served you some Junior Mints and a drink, and you said you really liked my drink, and I have felt like we've had this connection ever since. And he looked at me and he said, Mike? And I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. I was just kidding. He really does it. He knows my name. And then I looked down to pick up a cup and realized I was wearing the new name tags that our office has started to require us to wear. For a split second, I was like, oh my God, nobody sells a Snickers like I sell a Snickers. He remembers it from 14 years ago.
I'm so glad you shared that story. It's so great. It's just like sometimes these moments in life, it's cool when a celebrity is cool, right? Like it's cool when you can tell, like when I've interacted and interviewed Lynn, like he's always taken the time, whether I'm having my own website, like through bwaySHO, or I'm freelancing, or if it's like the New York Times or CBS, right? He's always giving everyone time and like eye contact. And I think that's so cool that to know that someone that you admire takes the time to do that.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. Specifically on that front, I'll mention Mark Ruffalo, who I've always felt like was a good guy.
Yeah,
because he does a lot of activism as well. He was just the kindest man that I've met. He stands out on my mind as someone that I was like, oh my God, that guy's even more great than I thought he was. And there have been a lot of people. Amy Poehler.
So glad to hear that.
So beautiful. Such a beautiful person. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And because you mentioned baseball, I'm guessing you might be into sports a little bit. And the coolest, I guess, probably pre-Lynn, there's like that pre and post Lynn world right now. When I was an intern for WTOP radio, I interviewed David Beckham, and
cool.
He was so nice, like specifically made sure that I got to ask a question as like the only female in the room, the only one under 20 in the room, and like gave me the eye contact. You know, eye contact is such a strong thing, right? Because like especially if you're a celebrity and you meet so many people, like it could be so easy to like have wandering eyes and to, you know, be slightly not there. And for those two experiences in particular, to have that experience, it's, you know, like it's fun to sometimes share these stories of work when it goes right.
Absolutely. Yeah. And luckily almost all of my stories are the ones that go right. You know, I mean, most of the experiences that I have at Hamilton are just extraordinary experiences. So it's I'm very lucky in that way.
That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear it. And I see that time is like starting to wind down. So I always like to ask if there's something you came into today wanting to make sure to share.
Oh, no, not specifically. I mean, the book, of course, is getting there, and Stephanie would be upset if I didn't mention that. So that's the one thing. The other thing that I'm involved in that has been utterly fascinating that I briefly touched on is this sort of research into evidence suggesting that life might go on beyond the demise of the physical body. And there's going to be a 6-part documentary series being released sometime in October or November, it looks like, on I can't say the platform yet, but it'll be one of the major streaming platforms. And that is just the stuff that has happened during all of that has really changed my life and brought an amazing amount of comfort. And especially in this time when we're dealing with something frightening like a pandemic, a health crisis like this, I'm hoping that people will find a lot of comfort in that. It'll be called Surviving Death, based on a book by Leslie Kean. Those are the two things that I'm working on. And then I want to say, of course, Black Lives Matter, as you said, and please, if you're in the public, wear your masks.
Yes, thank you for that. Very, very important. And we always talk about social media, like where people can find you. And I want to say it's so cool that usually for Facebook, right, that's like reserved for like friends that you've met in person or that you've had a lot of interactions with throughout social media. And I think it's so cool that through your stories that you've opened up this space to be this, like, this common ground, this way for people who love Hamilton and who love humanity to kind of gather. So how did you kind of decide? Was it after your first, post went viral that you were like, you know what, this will be a space for all?
It really started when I tend to be a very optimistic guy. I tend to be moved. The things that I notice are the positive things. That's just sort of my disposition. And after that first post with Pence and everyone that I was dealing with, we were sort of in shock. And now I realize that we were sort of grieving in a sense, actually. Yeah. When the election went the way that it did. And so I started writing these posts about these beautiful things that I was seeing every day at Hamilton. And people were really responding to them. Like, I could just tell that people needed to hear those stories. We like to hear the stuff that's good about us. And there is a ton of it. I was talking with a friend of mine about this. She said, you're so lucky that you experience all of these things, that they happen in front of you like that all the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's not just that they're happening in front of me. It's, I look for them. It's like, I think I'm gauged to look for that stuff, like that's what hits me. So it's not that you just have to look with the right eyes, but the stuff is everywhere. And I tell people all the time, if all you did was watch the news, you would think that human beings were this terrible species, and why would you ever want to be a part of it? But that's because the news is the exception. The news is the exception, by and large. Even in this awful time right now, where people are being choked to death on the street, right? Literally murdered. Even with that is an aberration in the larger picture. 90% or more of what happens in this world is people being decent to each other, even if they don't understand each other, right? Mm-hmm. Even if there's a guy who's, let's say, an older white guy who doesn't get the Black Lives Matter movement. And so there's some education that needs to happen there. But my bet is that 90% of the time, that guy, if he saw a person who's in black skin who needed help, he would try to help them. 90% of the time, I think that that's true. I think that most of the world is people being decent to each other. But you don't see that on the news because the news is the exception, and love is everywhere. It's not the exception. Love is in hopefully almost everyone's lives, and it's pervasive. And so we don't see it often on the news, Yeah.
Such a good point. I mentioned that I was a reporter in Texas. I worked as a news and sports reporter in West Texas for 2 years. And wow. And in those 2 years, like early 2017 until the end of 2019. And you do get to see different sides of humanity. And I've made some really wonderful friends that have stayed with me until this time, and covering a story on the border of Texas, and Mexico. And it's just so interesting how the news, a lot of, I like to say, like, mainstream media they always do. Like, it was a thing that they wanted to see, like, the news story, which made it less about the heart. And I was always about, well, how can we personalize it and share, like, this person's story? And so exactly like what you're saying is there's a person behind this bigger thing. And if you can actually, like, hear Amy's story, then you can maybe understand who Amy is.
Yes.
You know, and that's kind of like the beauty of what I've done with bwaySHO. Like, not to, like, toot toot, you know, it's just that when you're passionate about something, like, I'm so passionate about theater, and I'm passionate about helping to tell people stories. Tell your story, you know. That this is what happened. So it's been really cool having this the Show Must Go Online series in quarantine.
So great.
Because, you know, we're all at home, wherever that might be in the world. And I'm so grateful that you came on today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And thanks for doing what you do. It's a really, really important thing.
Thank you. And to everyone who is watching and commenting, y'all are awesome. And I appreciate you all so much. This will continue here on bwaySHO, so you can just find this interview later. If you're like, oh, I want to go back and listen to that Obama story one more time, which, you know, I probably will. And I also like to say, if y'all don't mind just hitting that subscribe button. I know you always hear the like and subscribe, but it actually does help. So if you don't mind, that would be cool.
I will definitely be subscribing. Definitely.
Thank you, Mike. And I just wanted to share that the Show Must Go Online continues throughout quarantine. Next week, we have Sarah Larson, who is also a bartender at Hamilton, and we met through the Freestyle Love Supreme Academy. She's awesome. I'm so excited.
Wait a minute. Can you do a quick little freestyle rap then?
Mike, can I do a little freestyle rap? You see, because we're here from the Freestyle Love Supreme Academy. I saw Hamilton last night. You know that when you're here, you got to go to the show. Sometimes it's hard to do a little freestyle, but when you go to the academy, it's like in your mind, and styling is cool. Like, I got this Hamilton little thing here. It's like, whoa, what a fool. Not a fool when you're a Hamilton fan, you see, because Freestyle Love Supreme has a new thing with Hulu on the 17th, and then I'll be chatting with Anissa and Jelly Donut and Ian Weinberger, who's in both, don't you know? So tune in to both of those, you see. So you can go to bwaySHO.com and you can see it all. That's what I got to say. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you another day.
Oh my God! Oh my God! I mean, I'm alone in my house right now, but that was amazing. Watch out, Lynn. Awesome.
Just, you know, that's the fun of the academy. Is like, I never
Awesome.
could have done that a year ago, but they just, like, it's all about just having fun and going with the flow. And once you realize, kind of like in live theater, if you mess up, it's just like, we'll figure out a new avenue.
Yeah. What an important lesson that is. That's so awesome. Thanks for that. Sorry, I put you on the spot and then you just blew it out of the water.
You know, it's fun. It's like, I feel like in another life, I was meant to be an actual performer. So part of this gets to, like, come out when I freestyle or whatnot. So
it's never too late to be a performer.
True. That's true.
Absolutely.
So is there anything else that you want to, anywhere specific that people can find you throughout social media? And of course, keep an eye out for the book and the series.
Yeah, the Facebook is, my Facebook page is basically, but I'm also MikeAnthony.com, which is not live quite yet, but that's being built now. And that's where the book, I think, will be able to be purchased from. And then there will be information about the documentary project on there as well. Yeah, MikeAnthony.com.
Amazing. And y'all can find me at bwaySHO. That's bwaySHO, as you can see from this banner. And I have an exciting announcement coming next week. So stay tuned. Just you wait. Enjoy Hamilton for everyone watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of it, and happy Hamilton Day. Bye, y'all.